Okay, Be'ezat Hashem, Na'aseh v'natzliach. I'd like to welcome you to the Lighthouse project as we begin a new series, a series of spiritual and character refinement. It's an tonight's lesson is going to be an introduction to the Omer, as well as an introduction to Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. Now, this can also be dubbed spiritual preparation for Shavuot, because that's what it is. Between Pesach to Shavuot, there's a little bridge that connects, a 50-day bridge that connects the holiday of Passover to Shavuot, and it's all one long preparation for the receiving of the Torah, Matan Torah. So in order to understand this time period, we need a little bit of an introduction, and then we're going to be able to delve into the study of Pirkei Avot, and you'll be able to see something very interesting. We'll be able to see how every single week is exactly connected to the Torah portion, the Parashat Shavua, to the Pirkei Avot, and to what's going on in our lives. It's absolutely amazing. Allow me to unravel it for you for the next few weeks. Before we get started, I'd like to give an honorable mention to our nightly sponsors, Pola Hamui, doing this in the Nishmat of Halfon Nisim ben Mitzrayim, ben Miriam, Zichrona Livracha, and the Citron family, doing this Leilun Nishmat of Shoshana bat Esther, Zichronam Livracha, and for the Refuah Shelema of Menachem Mendel bat Sarabate and Devorah Fega bat Rezo. Our class, Baruch Hashem, also has its own sponsors. We have our Issachar and Zvulun sponsorship, H&M Builders, doing this in memory of their grandfather and in honor of the Dornbush family. Be'ezat Hashem, the Dornbush family have a lot of Atzlacha, that Shena bat Dina have an easy childbirth, as well as happiness and bracha for Joseph Dornbush in his upcoming wedding. As also like to give an honorable mention to Esther Bouton, who is doing this in honor of her sons, Yonatan, Michael, Eliyahu, and Shalom ben Esther. Esther was actually here during the holiday season. I got to see her and her beautiful boys. Amazing family. I wish them all the best. Bracha v'atzlacha in all they do, and looking forward to these tzaddikim to grow up and be big Talmidei Chachamim. We also have a good friend of mine, Guy Mordechai, sponsoring our class in memory of a dear family member, Yosef Ophir ben Margalit, Zichrono Levracha. May he have an Ilui Nishmat. May all these divrei Torah be to his Hatzlacha in the Shamayim, and to Guy's dear grandparents that passed away, Osnat and Nachum Mordechai Zichronam Levracha, and Zohara and Mordechai Mansonego Zichronam Levracha. That's a great grandson right there, taking care of all those that passed away. Mezakeh otam b'divrei Torah, and may Guy Mordechai have a lot of hatzlacha, bracha v'atzlacha in all that he does, and hatzlacha b'tshuva, hatzlacha b'zivugim. Let's get started. So as we enter this Omer period, as it's called, which again begins at the second day of Pesach and ends on the night of Shavuot. It's a time when we begin to work on our character. We work on our midot, and we start to sharpen up and polish up our outlook, our hashkafa, the way we see the world, the way we see people, the way we live our life through Jewish thought. And alongside this 50-day period, there's a secondary event that's running parallel to it, which is the side story of the death of 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had one of the biggest yeshivas to ever be. He had 12,000 pairs of tzaddikim, of sages that study Torah, and those 24,000 students died. They died in a period where 600 to 800 tzaddikim, talmidim died per day, And during this time of the Omer, we are also giving some attention to that. As you can see, we don't cut our hair, we grow our beards, and it's not really because we're mourning the death of those human beings. We're actually mourning the loss of all that Torah. These are 24,000 huge Torah giants that just are gone. And the Torah that was inside of them is gone as well. So when you see people not getting a haircut and not shaving and acting as if they're mourning, they are mourning for the Torah that we lost. We don't even know the names of these rabbis, not even one. After their death, Rabbi Akiva went south in Israel and he found 5 new students, and these 5 new students became the beginning of all the Torah that we know today in the Talmud. And their names were Rabbi Meir Balanes, very popular rabbi. A lot of people know that name. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, the author of the Zohar, pretty good student. And Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. And all the Torah that we have, all the Talmud that we have, came from them. If you could imagine. The reason given to us why all these students passed away is simply put as Shelo chalku kavod ze lazeh. They did not give proper respect to one another. And the question comes, how could that be? These are Torah giants. How could they not be respectful of one another? Well, they got to a certain level where they believed that they are so righteous, so smart, on such a high level, that whatever nuance on the Torah they had, whatever chidush they had on the Torah, if they shared it with their chavruta, or with the person that's in front of them, or with another one of Rabbi Akiva's students, he just wouldn't get it. It's such a high level, he wouldn't get it. Lo chalku kavod ze lazeh. They didn't give each other the proper respect. And because of that, a plague and their death. And this double layer, and this week we'll only talk about 2 layers. As we progress in these lessons, you'll see how many layers are going to be to this time period, to Pirkei Avot, and leading up to Shavuot. This particular double layer of Omer, the 49 days of counting, and mourning the loss of the 24,000 students in the Torah that went along with them, is part of the work that we need to do of Ben Adam lechaviro. We have 2 concepts. Ben Adam lechaviro, between man to man, how a person interacts with another human being or another Jew. And Ben Adam lamakom, how a person interacts with God. And it seems that there's a big lesson to be learned here, how to interact with one another. That is the order of the day. That's what we're dealing with in these early stages of the Omer, early stages of Pirkei Avot, early stages of preparation to receive the Torah again. These early stages of us preparing for Shavuot.
Wait, when you say receive the Torah again?
Every year.
Oh, okay.
Every year.
Okay.
The way I received the Torah last year is nowhere close to the way I received the Torah this year. Right now we are working ourselves up. We're working on our midot. We're working on our character. We're working on our on the deepest corners of our psyche, in order to get polished up in every way between man and man, so we can be a proper vessel when we come to God and say, give us your Torah again. I prepared myself, and next year I'll prepare myself again. And every year, because Torah and religion is levels. Shavuot could totally be just a day when you eat baked ziti. Or it could be a day that you get plugged in and you move higher and higher in understanding the Torah, God, and life. It all depends. Thank God, look at us here, we're preparing. Comes Shavuot, we'll be plugged in, Be'ezrat Hashem. We know that Shavuot is the 50th day. The 50th day is the highest level. Level Nun. The letter Nun has the numerical value of 50. There's no higher level. And that's what we're looking to reach. We're looking to reach the 50th level by the time we reach Shavuot. Now, it's a positive commandment from the Torah to count the Omer, to count every day leading up to the Omer. This was also the time that the Jews were in the desert, from the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim until they received the Torah in front of Har Sinai. So if you want to give yourself like some sort of timeline, then on the 15th of Nisan, they got out of Mitzrayim. 7 days later, there was actual Kriyat Yam Suf. 50 days later was Matan Torah in front of Har Sinai. If you want to give yourself a little bit of a timeline. And this mitzvah of counting the Omer is a very interesting mitzvah. I'll give you a couple of halachot so you know if you're counting. If you're not counting and you missed it already, at least you know for next year. The mitzvah is to count Omer at night with a beracha, with a blessing. If you missed it, if you missed counting at night, you have a chance to make it up in the morning where you count without a bracha. You don't say God's name. And then the following night, you're back on the horse again, counting with a beracha. However, if you missed counting at night with a beracha, and in the morning you didn't count without a beracha, then the next night you can't count with a beracha at all. You're not back in the game. You can just keep counting without a beracha till the end of the Omer. Which means that you're still part of this character and spiritual refinement process. But the mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer is lost. You're not counting it properly anymore. You're not counting it with the bracha. And there's opinion. Is it one long mitzvah that takes 50 parts to complete? Or is each night a separate mitzvah? Two different opinions. However, if you're still in the game and you're still counting, that's the halacha of counting the Omer. But Sfirat HaOmer has a deeper purpose, has a deeper meaning. And this is where the lesson is really going to start. Sfirat HaOmer is actually, like I said before, it's a journey into the human psyche. That's what it is. If you get to it on a deeper level, if you really want to understand. I mean, Sfirat HaOmer is not like a calendar that you're counting down the days by crossing it out, and by the time you get to the 50th, yay, 50, I was able to count to 50. It's not that. That's just like part of it. That's pshat. That's the basic level we teach their children. As adults, what are we doing? Well, there are 7 basic emotions that a human being has. It's part of the human experience. And each week, between now and Shavuot, we deal with one emotion, one human experience, one human psyche that we deal with. And each day, within that day, we deal with the sephirah that corresponds to it, and the sephirah within the sephirah that corresponds to it. What does that mean? Okay. The 7 emotional attributes that I'm talking about, I'm going to explain them in the context of Omer. But they are way, way deeper than just the Omer. This is Kabbalah, this is Sefirot, this is too deep. I don't even know what I'm saying as I'm saying it. But as far as the Omer goes, I can explain it tonight. So these 7 emotional attributes / 7 Sefirot that we're talking about are Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. Okay, that's the Hebrew words for the Sefirot. What does it mean? Well, Chesed, that's the first week, corresponds to loving kindness. the first week we deal with loving kindness. So within that week, we delve into 7 different variations of loving kindness. And I'll give you an example soon. The second week is Gevura, which is justice and discipline. So on the second week, we deal with justice and discipline through Chesed, through Gevura, through Hod. 7 different aspects of justice and discipline. And as you work on each one of them, you become more polished in that particular character trait or that emotional attribute. So the third week is Tiferet, which deals with harmony and compassion. The fourth week is Netzach, which we deal with endurance. The fifth week is called Hod, which deals with humility. The sixth week is Yesod, which we deal with bonding. And the seventh week is we deal with Malchut, which we deal with sovereignty and leadership. Now, 7 weeks, 7 days, 7 times 7 equals 49 days. 49 means that every single day we're able to deal with a different type of character trait. And we derive this from the Pesukim, that one comes from Sefer Vayikra, that says, "Usfartem lachem mimachat haShabbat miyom meviechem et Omer tnufa sheva Shabbatot mimot tiyena." So we have a biblical source of from where we get this, that we have to count the Omer, and it says that following the Shabbat you should count 7 weeks. So, there's Tzedukim, there's a kind of a Jew that follows the Torah just according to the text. So according to this pasuk, it says you should count the Omer after the Sabbath for 7 weeks. So that means if Passover was on Tuesday, they don't start counting Wednesday. They wait for the Sabbath and then they start counting. They take it for the literal translation. Ironically, this year, counting of the Omer is exactly after Shabbat. It's exactly on Sunday. And ironically, if you ever want to know what date of the counting of the Omer is, the first day of the Omer was also April 1st. So according to the Gregorian calendar, and according to it being also after Shabbat, by all standards, it's all lining up this particular year. So it's very interesting. So for example, if yesterday was the 10th, so yesterday was the 10th day of the Omer. And it ironically started also after Shabbat. The second pasuk that comes from the Devarim says, Sheva Shevatot tispor lachem. You should count 7, Sheva Shavuot tispor lachem. You should count 7 weeks. And on the 50th day, after the 7 weeks, is Matan Torah, the gift. Matan means to give. And what are we giving? We're giving this heavenly gift called the Torah. So, like I explained, we use during this time the Omer to count the Sephirah within the Sephirah to create some sort of character refinement. So, the reason we do that is because now, more than ever, we're back into a special window of time. Here we are again. We're always trying to tap into these special windows of time that we can benefit from them and grow from them. So right now, from the beginning of Pesach until Shavuot, we have this 49 or 50 day period where working on your character, one day during the Omer, is the equivalent of months, even years, when you're doing it outside of the Omer. So if you want to go and work with a therapist and a psychiatrist and throw your money away for years on end just to figure out how you can become a better human being, I'm telling you, plug in now during the Omer. The rabbis tell us 1 day's worth of work on your character refinement in the Omer is compounded by a month's and years' times work in 1 day. And since this is an auspicious time for that, it's a good time to reach your high level of righteousness. Like if you ever wanted to be a better version of yourself, how do you get there? What's the shortcut? What's the spiritual elevator to being a tzaddik? Work on yourself right now. You can become a better version of yourself working on yourself right now. And especially between man to man, if you don't know how to interact with another human being, whether it's your friend, a co-worker, your husband, your wife, you're missing those tools, you're lacking those tools necessary to make those relationships work, this would be a good time to give it some attention. And especially once you finish honing yourself in that department, you can move on to getting to a better relationship with God, the ultimate relationship that we all seek and escapes us at times because we just don't understand God. But when you understand yourself and you understand another human being, you can understand how God works. By understanding each other, you can understand God. And we'll explain that in a second. Listen to what the Ramchal says. I'll read it in Hebrew and I'll translate it. He says, Einyan HaSfirot. He says, the whole concept of these Sefirot that we're talking about, and by the way, I don't know if you've ever seen this image of the Sefirot. It looks like 10 balls. 3 on top, 1 in the middle, 3 more, 2 in the middle. Did you ever see this image of Sefirot that only like high-level rabbis talk about it? Sometimes you see an image on it. People always that deal with Kabbalah are reading and they're always connected to each other with weird lines. That's what they're talking about, Sefirot. What are they? What are these Sefirot that they're dealing with? That they're talking about? That sometimes they mention like that it's a Gvura or Chesed or Netzach or Hod. It also corresponds to the human body, corresponds to the heavens, to the Keter, to the crown, to the Yesod. It's like, it's overwhelming. But we can begin to maybe understand what these Sefirot are, these little balls in the chart, through the Omer. So the Ramchal is telling us simply, Henna hasfirot, hine hasfirot hem midotav itbarach. These Sefirot are just representations of God's character traits. The way God carries himself. Hamidot shechidesh la'atzmo letzorach hanivraim. As a matter of fact, they're not his character traits. He just created them for his creations. We are in his image, and these character or these Sefirot are his creations, and they're a representation of different aspects of God, but they were created for us. These aspects of God are not God. We can't even understand God. These 10 Sefirot, even if we know them inside out, they're still not God. God is something else. We can't understand it with our human mind. But the Sefirot, in the context of the Omer, are just ways that God put for us to connect to Him through these little concepts. The Ramchal continues to say, שאינם מידות לפי עניין שלמותו מציאותו האמיתי הקודם, אלא מידות מחודשות ברצונו וחצו לפי מה שמצריך נבראם. Apparently these are midot that we need in order to interact with one another, in order to understand the world, and by interacting with these midot we'll begin to understand the Kadosh Baruch Hu that created these midot that are a reflection of Him. A little complicated, but not. And these attributes that we're talking about, right? And let's just do a quick review. So we mean to say that God acts in a way of loving kindness. Okay, I can act in ways of loving kindness. God has a side to Him of justice and discipline. Okay, so I see that I also have justice and discipline in my life, in my world. God has harmony and compassion. Okay, so I can also have a way to instill harmony and compassion in my life or in the world that I live in. God has endurance. Oh, I need endurance in my life. Or maybe endurance is necessary in people's lives. Since God has it, we're going to learn how to interact with endurance in our life. In other words, if you take away the word Sefirot and understand that they're just replacing character traits or emotional attributes, you can understand it a little bit better. So God has humility. So I see that the humility is a good, is something good that I can instill in my life. God has bonding and sovereignty and leadership. So we're trying to tap into all these things in order to refine our character, refine our lives. So let me give you an example. So the first week is that ball called chesed, loving kindness, benevolence, right? So since we have 7 character traits or 7 emotional attributes, then I can fix or polish or enhance my loving kindness in 7 different ways. And it would sound like this. It would sound like chesed shebachesed, gvura shebachesed, tiferet shebachesed, netzach shebachesed, hod shebachesed, yesod shebachesed. So in other words, there's loving kindness, but there's loving kindness with discipline. There's loving kindness with humility. There's loving kindness with justice and discipline. There's loving kindness with endurance. So there's loving kindness with different aspects of loving kindness. So now that we can understand how they match up 7 different ways, let's give an example. This is a very good example, which was the first day of the Omer. What was the first day of the Omer? Chesed shebachesed. Loving kindness within the loving kindness. Oh, what kind of a day is that? Okay, so it's a day. It's the love aspects of love. Interesting. So basically, everyone has a capacity to love. We all have the ability to love. The question is, how do we express it? How do we actualize it? There's an application and a book called My Omer. You can download it. It's free. It's amazing. And what it does is it actually gives you a small paragraph of the energy of that day. It gives you about 10 journal questions that you can ask yourself in that day. And as you answer it, you're like, oh my God, I never thought about it. And this type of work that you're just sitting there for 5, 10, 15 minutes asking yourself these questions, you rediscover yourself and you really see where you're off. And you really see where you're okay. So I'll give you an example. I'll go to the first day. I'm sorry, the first week. Let's see what questions they have. What is my capacity to love another person? Good question. Do I have problems with giving? Am I stingy or selfish? Is it difficult for me to let someone else into my life? Do I have room for someone else? Etc., etc., etc. You're working on your loving kindness in your loving kindness. Let's go and take a look at the next day. The next day is Gevura shebachesed, meaning discipline and in loving kindness. What is discipline in loving kindness? Let's try to see what that's like. So it's love with discipline. Love with distance and respect. For example, we'll give an example of a husband and a wife. Later on, we'll give an example of children. A husband and a wife, sometimes they don't give each other space. Or there's a lack of the respect of the space that they need. You know, there's sometimes you love somebody so much that you're smothering them. You don't give them the space that they need. Or you don't even respect the space that they need. So what do you need? You need discipline in your love. You need to know how to interact with your loved one properly. How about with your children? Sometimes you can have like overwhelming, you're smothering them, or something even with adults. You're giving them so much love. And what is that? That intense love destroys. It becomes sickening. You don't feel the love. You feel like, I don't want it. So what do you need? You need discipline. You got to know how to dish out the right amount of love in the right amount of time. Do you see what's going on over here? you're working on different angles of love on the first week. So for example, now, that was last week. We are already in the second week. The second week is the Gevura, discipline. So, yesterday, I'll just give you here, for example, yesterday was Tiferet of Gevura. Compassion in discipline. Fancy. Compassion in discipline. Let's see what that comes out to. Look at some of the questions. Oh my God. Quickly, I'm going to have to. Welcome. Good. Look at some of the questions. Is my discipline consistent or only forced? Am I arrogant in the name of justice? You know when people are right, they have an attitude, because I'm right, so they can act and talk anyway? Wow, they only had 3 questions. The first day was 18. You got to think a lot about it. Is my discipline reasonably restrained or is it excessive? Basically, get this app, get this book, and start asking yourself questions. And deal each week with something. Deal with your discipline. Deal with your love. Deal with your humility. Deal with every week and what it has. And see how it spits you out in 49 days. What kind of a different person are you going to be? And what kind of a vessel are you going to be for the receiving of the Torah on Shavuot?
It's called My Omer.
My Omer. Highly recommended. So here we go. We have a better understanding of what the Omer is. Okay? However, after we work on ourselves for 49 days, that's what we can humanly do. Right? But there's things that are above our power. Stuff that can only be given to us by God. Something that is on a much higher level. Something that sometimes we're undeserving and we don't even know how to accept. But if you're the right vessel, if you've created a beautiful vessel that has been polished and worked on yourself, then Hashem says, you are worthy to get elevated, and He gives you a gift. And what's that gift? On Shavuot, He gives you the Torah again. But what's the difference? This year, you were a better vessel. Last year, there was enough space for this much Kedusha and spirituality to come inside of you. That's all you created. But if you worked on it this year, and you created like a large space for it, Hashem is going to say, well, let me fill that void with Kedusha. You obviously want it. What kind of a person are you going to be? If last year you got this much Kedusha, and this year you got this much Kedusha, you're going to be a different person. Do you want to be a different person? You all say, I wish I could be a tzaddik. I wish I can be righteous. I wish I could get closer to God. Do the work. Put it in. Work for 7 weeks. Ask yourself some questions. Even if you come out 10% better, 20, 30, 40, something, a fraction better, you're better than what you were a few weeks ago. Upgrade yourself. We always care about being better for other people, for the world, for our country, for other countries, for all these charities. Take some time out for yourself. Fix yourself a little bit. Before you fix the world, before you fix your friend, fix yourself. And I'm speaking to myself when I'm saying this, by the way. Fix yourself. And this is the time for it. And it will give you a very, very deep understanding of the world, its inhabitants, and the Creator. The more you work on yourself, the more you work on these sefirot, the more you'll have a broader understanding of the world that you live in. And during this auspicious time that we're talking about the Omer, ironically, our rabbis tell us, you should also do something else. Besides working on your character with the sefirot, and besides the Omer, and besides mourning the death of Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students, the rabbis introduced layer number 3. What's layer number 3? Hey, part of it, read Pirkei Avot. Every single week, we've compiled a list of Mishnayot that you should read. And every week, those Mishnayot are going to help you refine your character. And this compilation of Mishnayot is called Pirkei Avot, famously known as Ethics of the Fathers. And basically what it is a collection of ethics, honesty, and advice passed down from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yoshua, to the 70 Zekenim, to the prophets, to the kings, to the rabbis, to our sages, to our parents, to us, to here today. It's a tradition. This is divine information that has been passed on from generation to generation, as we are here today studying the ethics of the fathers. Okay. So in this book are all the do's and don'ts of the Torah, just put in layman's terms. Put in more like stories, in parables, in straightforward advice from the biggest rabbis in Jewish history. And it's a tool. It's a tool for us to work on our midot, and it's a tool that is heavily laden with musar. And musar is a transformative tool that our rabbis have given us to form our character anew. And this is what's kept us going for thousands and thousands of years. This advice right here is what's kept us going through empires, kingdoms, societies, political and religious movements. All of those have come and gone, and we're still standing because of this divine knowledge that's been passed on to us from generations to generation. Advice and instructions how to live a proper Jewish life. And with the help of our rabbis, because thank God in every generation we have a Moshe Rabbeinu, every generation we have a rabbi that knows how to decipher the Torah, its laws, and how it corresponds to the day and age that we live in. And today I'm going to give you your first introduction to Pirkei Avot. What would be the first chapter of Pirkei Avot? I wonder what they're going to say. What would Pirkei Avot be dealing with on the first chapter, on the first Mishnah? Let's see. Pirkei Avot, Perik Rishon, Mishnah Aleph. Moshe, this is what they want us to know right off the bat. Okay? Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moshe got the Torah on Har Sinai. Umesara leYoshua, and he passed it on to Yoshua. VeYoshua leskenim, and Yoshua passed it on to the elderly. Uskenim lenviim, and the elderly, the 70 zekenim, passed it on to the prophets. Unviim esaru al anshe knesset hagdola, and the prophet passed it on to the rabbis of the great assembly. And the rabbis of the great assembly, hem amru, they say, shlosha devarim, 3 things. Just to summarize it, it's coming to let us know that everything that you're going to learn right now came by the way of the original rabbi of all rabbis, Moshe Rabbeinu, that got it from God himself. We are talking about divine information that came from God, that got passed down to Moshe, Yoshua, Zekenim, Nevi'im, Anshe Knesset Hagdola, all the way down to you. And they're giving us 3 tips right off the bat. Hevu metunim badin. You should always be surrounded by justice, meaning laws. Ve'amidu talmidim harbe. And make sure that you always have a lot of students learning the ways of the Torah and God. Ve'asu seyag laTorah. And create a fence around the Torah. 3 tips. Should always live in a society that there's justice. You should always have a lot of students that are learning Torah. And you should protect the Torah. You should put fences around the Torah to protect it. So like that, you don't not keep the Torah. Because we have a lot of mitzvot aseh, mitzvot lo ta'aseh. And sometimes if you don't do the proper guarding of that mitzvah, you could, God forbid, transgress. So in order not to do that, the rabbis gave us halachot. In other words, this is what you don't do so you don't transgress. That's what halachot are. They're just keeping us protected so we don't transgress on one of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvot. Now, very interesting. Very interesting that we're learning this right now. Because this week's parasha is Parashat Shmini. How can I connect Parashat Shmini to the first parak of Mishnayot? Well, let's see. What's going on in Parak Shmini? It's the inauguration of the Mishkan. The Jewish people are bringing sacrifices, finally have a way of atoning for their sins and getting closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu in the middle of the desert. And on the first day, before any of the sacrifices go up, Nadav and Avihu walk into the Mishkan and are killed by a strange fire. By a fire, because they brought a strange fire offering. A fire went into their nostrils, sucked out their soul, they dropped to the floor, and the reason why that happened is because they brought a strange fire that they weren't asked to bring. What's the connection? Well, not to go too long into it, but basically, they were so excited to be a Kohen. They were so excited for the first day, the grand opening of the Mishkan. They were so excited that they wanted to get so close to God that they were practically willing to die for it. And they decided, you know what? I want to get elevated. I want to get to a high spiritual level. I want to get to a place where I've never been before. I want to connect with God. They drank a little bit of wine to get super happy, walked into God and say, here God, I have this for you. Zoop, they get zapped. Why? God didn't ask for that. God didn't ask for it. That's not the way you serve God. They created their own way. They created their own method of connecting with God. And the Pasuk says that they brought something that they weren't commanded. So let's tie it into what's going on over here. Vasu seyag laTorah. Create a border for the Torah. Why? So things like that don't happen. We have to create a border to protect ourselves so we don't create our own versions of the Torah. And who do we have? We have our rabbis that give us the guidance on how to do that every single day of our life. Great introduction. I can tie it into this week's parasha, but this is just the beginning. If we go to the second Mishnah, which is this week, this week we read the second chapter of Pirkei Avot, and we go to the 9th Mishnah. It says over there, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai kibel mihilel v'Shamai. A huge rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai received this knowledge, or what I'm about to repeat, from Hillel and Shammai, which were the great teachers of the Talmudic era. Huay Omer, he would say, Im lamata Torah harbe, al tachzik tova le'atzmecha, ki lechach notzarta. He says, Im lamata Torah harbe, if you learned a lot of Torah, if you studied a lot of Torah, if you were really immersing yourself in Torah, don't hold for, don't think you're such a big shot. Don't hold yourself in such high regard. I learned so much Torah. This This is what you were created for. Because what happens? A person can say, look at me. I'm righteous. I pray every day. I study every day. I have 1,000 books on my library. Respect me. I'm a high-level Jew. No. That's what you're supposed to do. That's just what you're supposed to do. That's when you were brought into this world. You were brought into this world to study Torah and to live a Torah life. Just because you're doing it, don't expect a medal. Great advice. Because I always thought that, if you study Torah, people give you respect. Oh, you become knowledgeable. They call you rabbi, or they call you chacham, they call you tzaddik. He says, don't take that honor. Don't take the honor of the Torah for yourself. You were brought into this world to do that. And from this, I will learn that, you know what? That's my purpose in life. I'm here to connect to this book. I don't know why. I'm a Jew, and apparently the rabbis tell us we're here to connect to this book. Everything that I want is in this book. As much as people want to resist it, as much as people want to go against it, as much as people don't want to find that out for themselves, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says that he heard it from Hillel and Shammai. This is what we were brought into this world to do. Great advice. Furthermore, we go to the 13th Mishnah, and this is the last one we're going to learn together. I just wanted to learn a couple of two small ones and one really interesting one to show you how interesting and how smart the sages are. Amar lahem, Tz'u ur'u ezohi derech tova shidabek ba'adam. He says, go out and search what is the best way to live life. What type of way of life should a person cling on to in this world? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, ayin tova. Rabbi Eliezer says, a good eye. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Yoshua Omer, chaver tov. Rabbi Yoshua says, no, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi Omer, shachen tov. Rabbi Yossi has a different opinion. No, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon Omer, haroet hanolad, one who can foresee into the future. Not like as a prophet or somebody who predicts the future, but someone who can calculate what would come if he does one thing or another. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, lev tov. And Rabbi Eliezer Omer, a good heart. Before I give you the punchline, I want to ask you, what do you think is the best way that a person should be in life? What type of life should he lead? Should he have a good eye? Should he be a good friend? Should he be a good neighbor? Should he be one that always thinks ahead and is able to predict what would be good or a bad choice in his life? Or a person with a good heart? What would you choose? Good heart. What about you? Good heart. All the above. That's the smartest answer.
It's got to be all of them.
It's got to be all of them.
It's got to be all of them.
Okay. So let's look into it. Well, I'll give you the punchline. Amar lahem, רואה אני את דברי אלעזר בן ערך מדבריכם, שבכל דבר דבריכם. He says, I see the דברי אלעזר בן ערך that said that it's a leftover, a good heart, has everything that you said included in it. To understand this, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this one. So take a look. What is a person that has a good eye? So a person that has a good eye, he's charitable. He has a good attitude towards other people. He's happy with his lot. He's satisfied with his share. He's not envious of other people's successes. As a matter of fact, he's very supportive and enjoys witnessing other people's successes. He's got a good eye. That's a good description of a person who has a good eye. What's a good friend? A good friend is a friend that cares enough to give constructive criticism and corrective advice to his friend. Not a yes man. Not a person that just constantly pats you on the back. Oh, you're the man. You're great. Don't worry, everything will work itself out. A friend that can give like real stern advice. Hey man, you got to lose weight. Hey man, you got to start going to shul. Hey man, you gotta be nicer to your wife. You got to be nicer to your children. Hey man, you gotta talk without cursing. You know, somebody who gives like, gives a little bit of a nudge. You got to step up your game. That's a good friend. Not a good friend that just tells you that everything that you're doing is perfect. And a good friendship can be measured if the person receiving that advice or that criticism is accepting it. Then it's a good friend. Because there's some people that as soon as you tell them off, that's it, that friendship is over. He wasn't a good friend, maybe you weren't either. But some people can't accept it. So a good friend is not only the one that dishes out the criticism and the critique, but also the one that is able to accept it is also a good friend. The Midrash says, Chaver Tov, a good friend, is actually a good spouse. A good spouse is a good friend. If you're lucky enough to have a good spouse, she ends up being a good friend too. Why? Because you're living so closely with one another. You're spending so much time with each other that a good wife can be the best proponent to giving you positive motivation. A good wife is like that mirror that always tells you what's wrong with you, and if you're in the right state of mind, you accept it. Or the wife can be the one that tells you everything that's wrong with you, and you just say, you're so annoying. Leave me alone. But a person who's really working on himself, and this is, what I'm saying is super hard to achieve. To have your wife or your spouse or your husband tell you what's wrong with you, and you say, thank you, honey, let me work on that. Most people want to stand their ground and say, this is why I'm this way, and this is why I'm acting this way or talking that way.
Isn't that why you married me?
Isn't that why yeah, you liked it in the beginning. What happened now? So a good friend is also a good spouse, if you know how to accept the critique. How about a good friend is when you're also a good friend, when you seem to be a good person in the eyes of all people. When you're a chaver tov, when there's these types of Jews that they're really a chaver tov, they're a good friend. Anywhere you go, they have a good spirit to them. They have a good attitude to them. That even without knowing them, you can see that he's a good friend. He could be there for you, and he doesn't need to know you. And we go to the concept of Kol Am Yisrael Arevim Ze Lazeh. We're all Am Yisrael. We're all one nation. So if a Jew that I never met before comes and turns to me and asks me for a favor, as a good friend, I'd oblige, because that's what Jews do. We are good friends to each other even without knowing each other. How about that good neighbor? Chazal telling us he's actually better than a good friend. Why? He's closer. He's the neighbor. He's right there. You might have a great friend, but we're in Florida. He's in Kentucky. What can he do for you now? You need a cup of sugar. You need a jump start on your car. A good neighbor, he's right there. He's much closer. Not only is he right there, not only is he's closer, but he's also always ready, and he's always ready to motivate. He's like a combination of a good close friend, is what a neighbor is. And a good neighbor, since he's constantly there, and he's always willing to help and ready to help, and his proximity to any situation is what makes him a neighbor, helps him elevate himself through acts of loving kindness, through chesed, through doing ahavat chinam, free love, where he's just doing things out of love. He gets more opportunities to do acts of loving kindness because he's close, as opposed to that faraway friend. How about the one who sees the outcome, that sees the future? So like we said, he's not a prophet, but he's the type of guy who can assess a situation. And he can decipher between a good outcome and a bad outcome. That's a good way of life, I would say. A person who's got a good head on his shoulders, can think about things, can make the right decisions. And this type of thinking and this type of smart decision making can save him from physical, spiritual, and emotional mistakes in life. That's a nice way to live. You can think about it. You're walking through life and you're constantly protected from any mistakes. Is that a good way of life? Is that the way to go about it? And the last one was a good heart. And a good heart, as we know, that the heart is the emotional control center of a human being. The heart is the source of all the good actions that a person does. It's the source of a person's good character. A person who has a good heart always sees the good in all people. A person who has a good heart, he wants to help out humankind. He wants to help out people. He's got a good heart. He's thoughtful. He's involved. He promotes selflessness and acts of loving kindness. Why? He has a good heart. We know people like that. First they're born, one huge heart, and then the arms and legs come out. We know those people. We have a few friends like that. That everything that they do comes from their heart. And typically those people are in a constant state of joy because they have a certain outlook on life. So we had the good eye, the good friend, the good neighbor, the one who sees the outcome, and the good heart. Let's put it into a scenario. Let's say I'm driving. I'm on the highway. Let's see what kind of guy I am. I see on the roadside a guy with a long beard and a flat. Right? So if I'm the guy who has a good eye, what does he say? He's in trouble. Let me see if I can help him. And what does he do? He calls up AAA, or he calls up for help, or 411 roadside. There's a guy by Sterling Road. Nice guy. A good friend would possibly come and help him out, or maybe make some arrangements, or maybe he'll say, I can make it, I can't make it. You know, it's a friend. Friends sometimes are there for you, sometimes they're not there for you. It all depends if they're even close to you. If a guy, like we said, is in Kentucky and you're here, what can a good friend do? A good neighbor, he's good when he's close. You're on the highway. Can he help you? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe he's got jumping cables. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Can I call a good neighbor right now? Possibly. He's also a good choice. How about the one who sees the outcome? Oh, see, he should have had a spare. And not only that, he should have prepared. And not only should he have prepared, but he should also, he starts masterminding all these things that he should have done. The good things, the bad things. While the guy is driving away, he's just thinking about all the things that he could have done, good or bad, as the person sitting on the roadside. The person with the good heart, as he sees the person with the beard on a flat tire, blinker is on, pulls over, stops, and helps. So you can have a good eye and appreciate what's going on. You can be a good friend and a good neighbor, depends where you are in the world. You can be one that is constantly thinking about how to get out of things, but a person with a good heart, he stops and he helps. That's in a scenario. So the rabbi tells us, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he says that the lev tov, a person who has a lev tov, a good heart, he's actually all those in one. He's got the good eye, he's a good friend, he's a good neighbor, he sees the outcome, and he's also feels and has lev tov. It includes all the virtues that we mentioned before. However, the secret of lev tov is actually everything that we've been talking about tonight. How? If you take the numerical value of the word lev, that's lamed and bet, it's 32. And if you take the numerical value of tov, that's 17. 32 and 17 is 49. It says 49. Lev tov. If you want to get to the point of having a lev tov, what do you need to do? You need to spend 49 days working on yourself on the Omer, and you come out with a lev tov. This is what this is all about. This whole thing of what we're learning here today is he's telling us, whatever you want to be in life, the best thing that you could be is lev tov. And the lev tov, the rabbi is saying, wink, wink, it's the Omer. It's the 49 days. That's how you acquire a lev tov. That's how you can actually become a vessel to receive the Torah. That's how you have all the attributes that a person can be in one. Through the Sefirot, through the Omer, through Pirkei Avot, and through the weekly Torah portion. In conclusion, once again we're in a special window of time between Pesach and Shavuot. And this window of time is the one that we work on our character. And each day has the power to polish you more than any other day of the year and more than any other method that's out there. Self-help books, psychiatrist, therapist, put them on a shelf for 49 days. Download an app, read a book, and see how it transforms you. And while we're preparing ourselves to receive the Torah, always have in the back of your mind, I just want to make myself a better vessel to accept the Torah again this year, but on a higher level. Because we should. We should. Every year, we should become a better version of ourselves. We should get upgraded. We should know a little bit more Torah. We should feel the Torah a little bit more. And if you haven't had that mentality your entire life, try it. See how 5,778 pans out for you when you have a little bit more of a lev tov and a little bit more of God in your life. Give yourself that shot. Find out. Taste it. If you like it, come back for more. If not, go back to being you. But maybe the new you is really you. Getting mentally and spiritually prepared for Shavuot, it's not easy. Got to put in the time. It's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time. The question is, how much time is it going to take for you to process your answers? Reading a few questions is one thing, but once you digest your answer to those questions, that's what takes some time. And you see, from the time you ask your questions and give those answers till the next day, it's sort of like swimming in your mind. Wow, I just didn't think about it this way. Oh, that's a different angle. You know what? I didn't even know that this is my stand on this, or this is my take on that. Try to rediscover yourself and rediscover your emotions and rediscover your feelings, because we're a generation where we put our head in the sand and hope that everything works itself out. And when I say head in the sand, here's the sand and here's our head. Just bury it in there.
Except if it's my Omer.
Except for my Omer. That's what it is. Sometimes you take the thing that is supposed to hurt you the most, and you find a way of how it can actually better your life. This is an amazing tool. It's an amazing tool, but it has a time and place for it. Shlomo HaMelech said, there's a time to play, there's a time to sleep, there's a time to cry, there's a time to dance, there's a time for everything. The secret to life is balance. When you do a little bit of this and not too much of that, and you get this, you get the spice of life. You get to really enjoy life and everything that it has to offer. But when this becomes 80% of your life, you miss the point. So as we're preparing ourselves, want it, feel like you need it, or feel like you just want to do something different. You've already done everything 100 times over. This is probably something that you never did before. Try it. Try it this year. Pick up where you left off. Pick up where we are. Even if you can walk out 10% or 20% or 30% a better version of yourself, that's a huge upgrade nowadays. We're living in a generation where people are very self-absorbed, very not connected to being. We're in the day and age of social media, but nobody's social. Nobody's social. We're more anti-social than ever. It's like the biggest scam that's out there. We're not connected to religion or to spirituality the way that previous generations have been. And all we want to do is we just want to keep it going, just like Moshe Rabbeinu kept it going with Yeshua, with the Zkenim, with the prophets. Don't let it stop here. Don't let it stop here. Don't go up to the Shamayim after 120 years and say, hey, what happened? What happened to that bull I passed you 3,000 years ago? I dropped it. You're going to be that guy? You're going to be that girl that dropped the ball for thousands of years of generations? Don't let it be. Give yourself a chance to really experience yourself as a Jew. And save yourself from a stale practice of religion. It's boring. Religion that's not making you or motivating you, it's boring. Don't get sucked into that. And get saved from these recycled, vicious cycles in your life. People are constantly reliving the same vicious cycle. Get yourself out of it. You have a chance to do that. We have a destination. It's Shavuot. Punch it into your spiritual GPS. You'll get there in about 37 days. And when you get there, you'll be so happy to receive a huge gift. Get connected. Start to understand that there's a reason why in this time period, all the parashiot Shavua are going to have a special thing that deals with a person's character. We're going to see that we're constantly working on our character, on how to work with one another. The ethics of our fathers is going to completely polish us up, and that you'll see that in 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, you might be a better version of yourself. שיתו לי בכם לחילה, פסיגו מתה, למען תספרו דו אחרות. השם ברך אתכם, שמח אתכם.